Just let me change the layout. See how that works. Let's do this work. All right, good morning, Facebook. This is Blabbing for Britain, episode 65, with myself and John and Peter and Stephen, as everybody joins us. And also today here will be Neil as we talk about Don't Stream and Drive 2017. And I know Neil's around somewhere. I'm just checking the chat. And Stephen's with us and is sorting his camera out. If you want to help, I'm just going to go to Facebook and go to the post. At 12 o'clock today, we're not live yet, hang on. Yes, we are live, it's just got a different, right. You can help if you actually click the link that I'm posting on Facebook now. If I can edit this, just give us a second or two. Right, I'm going to leave Facebook behind now because we are going out live on Facebook. Yeah, if you click the link above at 12 o'clock today, quite a few tweets and quite a few Facebook posts will be going out in support of Don't Stream and Drive Day. And if you can get there before 12 and add your Twitter account to your Facebook page, then you can make a difference in getting the word out about Don't Stream and Drive Day. Now I've got Peter. Peter, can you refresh and come back in, please? Hang on, this is going to be, I've got a feeling that this is going to be good. Let's get the problems out of the way first. And John, my apologies for that. You should be back in a second. Right, okay, Peter. John, I've invited you. If you can come in again, my apologies. I did that. It moved too fast for me. And I was Xing Peter out. And unfortunately, exactly so. Right, I'm inviting Peter. And as I wait for Neil and Stephen, and I've still got the situation where. And good morning, Peter.
Yo.
Right. Okay. As today is all about Don't Stream and Drive, and we'll wait for Sergeant Neil to join us. But whilst we're waiting, we've got a couple of topics that we had in the Blabbing for Britain chat in the back, and the first one, which is a traffic related thing, is cameras in bus lanes. And the government, or the councils and the government, made £31 million last year from bus lane cameras. I'm glad I don't live in Newcastle, because the Newcastle one made quite a bit of money. Any thoughts, gentlemen?
Oh, very much so. We've got a couple that are real nasty here. Just before it, a very bad road, worst roundabout in Britain, I'm told. A Hud again roundabout. And just as you go along the bus lane, there's a turn off into Maplins. There's a little area there with KFC and things. And the amount of people that get caught in that bit is unbelievable. But what I don't like about lanes is these cameras. There is no leeway. There is absolutely no leeway with them. And it's such a shame, you know, because you get good, innocent drivers who are insured, taxed, MOT'd and everything. They just make that little bit and go over. And it's such a shame. And yeah, I just sometimes think these cameras are too severe. Luckily, you don't get points for them, but I better not mention that because people rely on the license to survive. They do really rely on your license. And I know in traffic, I'm an advanced motorist, and hey, I still make mistakes. You know, heavy goods driver, lorry driver, and come on, give a bit of leeway sometimes, you know. And the fines are far too big. Who's got £100 to take out their pocket nowadays in this society? You know, so that's all I'm going to say. I'll let John in it now.
Bus lanes. There's a new one on the road, not very far from me. But it doesn't have any bus lane cameras. It does have speed cameras along it, though. And people are praising the bus lane because what used to take them 28, 29 minutes to get the 3 miles into Solihull along the bus lane is now down to 8 or 9 minutes. So I think it's dependent on who you are. If you're a bus user, they're wonderful.
Yeah.
If you're a driver, they can be very painful. There are 2 bus lanes known for making money around the West Midlands. One is near the Children's Hospital, and that's made multi-millions of pounds, but it's currently being challenged and looks like they're going to have to pay some of it back.
Oh, why is that?
Why is that? Well, I don't know. The court seems to be saying that it's not fairly done or something of that nature, or doesn't keep up the rules. The second one is the Coventry Ring Road. Anybody familiar with Coventry Ring Road?
Yeah.
The concrete city. Most of the on-off roads have bus lanes, and it is very easy to stray into the bus lane, and it is totally unforgiving. You can only have to do 20 or 30 feet and you get a ticket.
Right. Okay.
And I have a friend who got one on Sunday, funnily enough, going to IKEA. In Coventry, they have a multi-storey IKEA in the city centre. And it's so easy to miss the turn-off that you go to the next one, and when you do a U-turn underneath, because the road is totally raised around the whole of the ring, it's almost impossible not to stray into the bus lane when you're doing the U-turn underneath. So there's good and bad sides to them, aren't there?
Right, indeed. And good morning, Neil. It's nice to see you. And your thoughts on bus lanes will be most interesting.
We got no sound, Neil.
Oh, we've lost.
Lost him and Peter, and all he did was switch his microphone on. Well,
Peter's back, and we've lost. Neil's actually. Just a minute, Neil. I'm going to invite you back in. Just a minute. This is going to be interesting. So I'm inviting Neil back in, and I know Stephen's there as well. No, Stephen's not there. Neil's not there. Morning, Neil.
Good morning.
Oh, we have sound, we have vision. All is good.
It's all working. All the planets have aligned. That's just see what happens the minute you mention bus lanes. Bus lanes. What can I say about bus lanes? In my experience, when I was over at Manchester on traffic, is that they are a really valuable way. This sounds like a politician. A really valuable way of getting a lot of people into the city very quickly, but they are ridiculously abused, and I used to take a great deal of pleasure in, particularly Wimslow Road in Fallowfield. I used to take a great deal of pleasure in just parking up there and waiting for them to come along and say, "You're in the bus lane, get out of it, and here's your ticket." because it sort of defeats the object, doesn't it? And so I'm all for them. I think one of the biggest problems that I used to find, though, is that people don't really pay much attention to the times where they're actually open and operational. So a lot of the time, the bus lane is free to be used, but people still all push across onto this side because there's a bus lane, I can't go in there. But I agree with them, and I think, you know, it's like the red routes in London, which is
Oh, he's gone.
I'm back. There was a lot of jumping around today. I mean, I had an interview yesterday with Krishna Day on Blue Jeans, and she said, Smiletime's a bit jumpy sometimes. but I think bus lanes are a good thing. It's a bit like car sharing lanes and all those sort of things. I think they're a great idea, but they're always open to abuse. So,
Birmingham has started removing them.
Really?
Because it didn't work.
Oh, that's interesting.
The longest bus lane ran from the edge of from the junction before Spaghetti.
Mm.
You could get off the junction before Spaghetti about 3.5 miles before Spaghetti, and then you could go in what was the A47, which consisted of existing roads and a new road built. And all the way to the city centre, it was bus laned, and it didn't work.
Oh.
There were too many hold-ups where the traffic got stuck around the 3 roundabouts that were there. So the cross traffic then came to a halt. And in the end, they actually, on that very, very long route, have removed the bus lane.
Oh, that is interesting. I suppose if there's evidence to show that they're not working in the way that they were planned, well then, why not open the road up? That's a bit like the hard shoulders and using hard shoulders on the motorways, isn't it? There was sort of excess space that could be used that wasn't being used, and so they've sort of gone into that active motorway management to try and increase flow.
All the hard shoulders on the M42 near where I live are active 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Because it would be ram-jammed otherwise, because it really needs to be 6 lane, not 3. Yeah. The amount of traffic it carries.
It has definitely made a difference, particularly that stretch where you come off the toll road as you're heading south and then you come onto the M42. That used to be an awful, and it still backlogs now, but it's nowhere near as bad as it used to be. It used to be hideous because you sort of come down the M6, filter off onto the toll road and enter this world of quiet roads where you can just drive at pleasure, and it's an utter delight to whiz along this sort of lovely road, and then you get to the other end after the toll barrier and it goes and crunches up into this huge traffic jam, and before the active management there, it was hideous. It almost made going on the toll road a bit of a pain. You thought I might as well sit on
the active management 24 hours, and all the way from the junction you've just described, which is the Tamworth turn off, all the way to the M40 now is active.
That's, it makes a big difference. It does. I know if I look distracted, it's because I'm sort of monitoring TweetDeck and doing a million other things.
The other thing on the M42 I don't like is that you come off the M40 and you end up in the fast lane, and my wife finds it totally frightening. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's a very strange junction. The
is that the M40 onto the M42?
Mm.
Yeah, and don't the I think the carriageways go like that as well, don't they? They don't. If I think
the M40 comes up and then drops to the right-hand side, so you end up in the fast lane. It's quite.
I think doesn't the.
What's an experience if you've never done it before?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of it now. I'm sure there's something odd about that junction where the road sort of it splits to the M42 towards the M5, and it splits towards the M42 towards the M6.
Yeah.
But instead of just sort of going like that, I'm sure they sort of go like that.
Now what happens is the right-hand turn goes off left first and goes over the top of the left-hand turn. I think that's what you mean.
Yeah. Mm.
Weird. Honestly, weird.
Yeah.
Can I mention something about don't stream and drive?
Well, that's 11
That's
o'clock.
later.
Far away.
Well, it's just that I'm a member of the PSA, and someone within the group has started to do interviews while they're driving, and it's caused a bit of debate. And he's quite a well-known speaker, and so he started interviewing when they're travelling along, and then they're going about the BBC doing it and the risk assessments it's done. So it's actually split the community about it now, and so just to let you know that's happening. And it's all came from this carpool karaoke.
Oh yeah.
With the guy, so we'll probably see more things happening with that. So I just sort of add that in and just check the song's working.
Oh, okay.
Apparently, when they did the first few carpool karaoke's, it was actually on a trailer being towed by another vehicle.
Ah, right, okay.
It isn't now, but when they did the first few, they were actually on a trailer being towed.
Ah, right, okay. Well, I think that's sensible. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I keep saying about that, and I mean, I don't want to stray into don't stream and drive too much because that's later really, but James Corden, bless him, everybody loves him. He's become a huge international celebrity from his times on Gavin and Stacey or whatever it is. and everybody loves him. He's great. And carpool karaoke has had a huge response. It's fantastic. And I've challenged him on Twitter a few times saying, come on, let's do something for road safety. And obviously they don't reply. But I think one of the biggest issues around that for me is that they may or may not put lots of security and risk assessment in place, you know, and as Peter said, and as you said, John, about the trailer, there could be 2 cars in front, 2 cars behind, traveling at a very slow speed. Could be a closed road with staged traffic going the other way. It could be on a trailer and they're being towed.
Yeah.
The biggest problem with the whole thing is that when that actually, despite any security and safety and risk assessments they put into place, once they actually show it on YouTube and on TV, all of that is stripped away. And what the public see when it's broadcast is James Corden in a car with Adele or Elton John or Michelle Obama or whoever it happens to be. I mean, Michelle Obama was around the grounds of the White House, so that was fairly safe. But it shows them in a car driving down the road, larking around, singing and being a complete buffoon. And that's the wrong message, because that creates an impression on people who are influenced by this kind of behavior and go, well, if it's good enough for James Corden, it's good enough for me.
Yeah.
And you think, no, you're nuts. And that's where it all falls down for me. So,
and you know that I done it in my van as well, and I've completely stopped it now. And I will only do it when we're sitting still, as of, well, I haven't done any for a while, but no, I did start to think, wait a minute, although I was sitting with the camera, I thought, no, I'm stopping the driving bit now. And yeah, so it's like that.
that's how it is. So, how are you gentlemen anyway? Is it all good in your live streaming stuff?
Yes, my shows are going really well at the moment. I had a fantastic lady on Monday, and it's all about the preparation beforehand. And now I've got, incidentally, carpool karaoke, right? When he started that, all the big stars said to him, "Who are you? Stop bothering us." Now they're begging to come on that carpool karaoke, and he's got them lined up. And he says, "Oh no, you were," and guess what? People are begging to come on to my show now. Begging, you know. As soon as that last show finished, the next person was up and said, "Are you being serious about coming on?" Incidentally, policemen, do you still wear ties?
Depends on the force. I will wear a tie if I'm going to, for argument's sake, if I was asked to go and do a presentation at headquarters for an event of whatever sort, perhaps about social media or something like that, I would invariably wear the combat trousers that we normally wear day to day now. I would then wear the white shirt and the tie. But my day-to-day role, I wear a black T-shirt with the crest on the sleeve and my epaulets, and that's the standard day-to-day uniform that we wear. So it depends on the circumstances, but generally most forces now day-to-day, they're not wearing ties at all.
It's just the reason I ask. I'm a tie man, right? Look. And,
I'm doing my teenager bit today. So.
Yeah. But how's this, right? I've got one guy, sometimes can look a bit scruffy. I'll tell him to go in a haircut and things. And I looked at him one day and I said, right, I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm getting you shirts and ties. And I looked at him and I said, yeah, no problem. And I says, and for health and safety, it'll be clip-on ties. Should you get caught or anything like that. The first day he went out wearing it, first day, a woman said, looking really smart. And it gave that impression with the business. And it was great to see him coming in with this tie, and I'm getting him V-necked sweaters with a V-neck. And I just think the uniform says, when you turn up and say, well, these guys kind of know what they're doing. And I was really, really happy. So I wonder what the guests that are looking in, the viewers, is, do you like seeing people wearing a tie? I'm wearing it today because I'm going to go out after this, and I feel great for it. And it just makes, I'm so happy about it, you know. And I'm going to give them something else to wear in the summer because I know it can get hot. And so this is, the ties will be their winter wear. Really happy about it. Just like to see people's thoughts on that.
There's a lot to be said about it. I mean, forces around the country now, a lot of them don't even issue the tunics anymore. So the traditional policeman's tunic with the silver buttons aren't generally issued. If you want one for a ceremonial occasion or for something where you need to be in the full regalia, clothing stores will provide one for you. But actually having one of your own issued, unlikely nowadays.
You see, that saved them a lot of money doing that.
My force has gone away from the custodian helmets and the caps, and they now issue baseball caps to all officers that are out on patrol. And if they're going to something ceremonial, they can go to stores and borrow one. You know, and I've got 26 years in, so that goes completely against the grain for me, because I like to go to, if I'm going to court, I like to go to court and stand there in my tunic and say, this is me, professional police officer, this is what I look like, this is how I present myself, not stood there in my boots and combat trousers and a t-shirt and body armor and a dirty yellow jacket that I've been running around the streets in and say, morning, your worships, blah, blah, you know.
Unshaven. Do they have to shave in the force? You shave?
Yeah.
Now, but are you allowed to grow a day's growth in the force?
The bottom line, if you wanted to go hard and fast with it, with most forces, I would think is probably the same as the two that I've worked for, is that you should be clean shaven, which I'm not today. But I'm at home, and if you want to grow a beard, grow it on your own time, until it's until it's actually at the point where it doesn't look scruffy and horrible. So if you've got a week off, get your beard going. Invariably, I think these days they're a little bit more relaxed about that. I can remember days where if you turned in and you had a little bit of stubble on your chin and they'd say, right, get yourself down to custody and get one of the prisoners' razors and get yourself shaved before you go out, because we have razors in custody for the prisoners. And they say, the sergeant will send you down. Get down there and get a shave. You're not going out on the streets looking like that.
Incidentally, not a lot of people know this, but did you know that you can have a beard in the British Army?
I would have thought so.
Well, as only officially, they do it in Afghanistan and things to get with the locals. That's quite new. But the only people in the British Army that are allowed a beard, right, are what they call the pioneer sergeant in an infantry battalion. And their job's to get them over obstacles so they recognise them. And the only other one that I know of is the Queen's Piper. The Queen's Piper wears a beard. I could win a quiz with that now, if you didn't know.
I could never do those roles then, because despite everything that I've ever tried, my wife hates it, so I've never really got very far. But a week's growth sort of just starts to show. And, I did Movember once, but it was just a waste of time. A whole month, and there was just really nothing there.
I've had when I was a 16, 17, I had a droopy moustache because it was very fashionable in those days. The good, the bad, and the ugly type, you know. But basically, I've always had a beard.
Right.
The only time I shaved it off was one Christmas, and I went to pick my wife up from her works do, and she walked straight past me. So
It can take years off you, you know. A good haircut and a good shave will take years off you, you know, John.
see, but I'm a lot older than you, Peter, anyway, so, you know. I've still got my hair, so while I've got my hair, I'm going to wear it, you know.
Yeah, quite right as well. But no, that's quite fascinating. But I'm absolutely delighted that the first customer he went to had made a comment.
Right. Looking good. That's great.
Yeah, and it just gives that professionalism about it.
But have you seen the current fashion with beards? The current fashion for the younger youth of this world, and I call anybody up to about 35 youth, is a great big bushy beard, but shaved at the side of the hair.
Yeah.
I look at them and I think, what? You know?
Yeah, that's the fashion. Don't you just want to grab that long beards?
Well, I think you saw I actually tried to grow one through January, but it just didn't look as good being grey as everybody else's. So in the end, I took the shears to it. Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
If we can just take a moment, because today is Don't Stream and Drive Day. And Neil, I know we're going to have shows later, but it's very important to get people involved in the next hour and a half so you can get your message out. So would you like to explain about the day? And the link that everybody needs is in the post on Facebook.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. It's essentially a campaign that's now in its second year. It ran on April the 8th last year, and it's running today. And it's because of the involvement that I've had with the live stream community, and I started to see people that were using it while they were using their mobile phone to live stream while they were behind the wheel of the car. And I felt that the best place to tackle that was to tackle the community about it that are actually doing it. So I tackled people through Periscope. That sort of tailed off quite quickly because what I didn't want to do was have somebody read my message on their broadcast while they were driving saying, don't do that, it's dangerous, and then something happened. So I challenged them through Twitter, where the accounts are linked, or in any other way that I can do. And basically that grew into the day last year. And it's all about raising awareness. As the use of live stream video has surged across the globe, it stands to reason that people are going to be using it behind the wheel. And they are. And this is about raising awareness of that danger and the fact that it's equivalent to drink driving, if not worse. And that people need to think about what they're doing, because you know the consequences can be fatal, and that's in a nutshell that's what it's about. It's about raising awareness of this new use of phones that was never ever considered when the legislation came into play in 2003, because this sort of functionality just wasn't there. And it's just raising awareness of it and helping people understand that what it is, because a lot of people say, well, what's that? What do you mean streaming and driving? And you have to explain to them. So it's raising awareness of people that know nothing about it, and it's challenging people who are actually engaging in the behavior as well. So that's what it's about. Yeah. See, that's a GIF, but it's obviously not. That should. There. Yeah. It's surprising, really, how many platforms where you put a GIF on and it doesn't do anything. It just sits there as a static image.
But how's a question? So it's about streaming and driving. Is that the person watching a stream mainly while they're driving, or listening to one and looking at it, or is it them streaming themselves?
Primarily, this has always been targeting the people who are using platforms such as Periscope or Snapchat, or putting recording video that they post onto their stories on Instagram now, or similar stuff like that, where they're actually recording and broadcasting that footage themselves from the car as they drive.
Right.
The wider issue is obviously that So some people will challenge me and say, well, I stream music all the time because it's better than the radio. And I say, well, you can stream music because it's fine. It's just playing through your sound system and there's no problem with that. And as long as you're not distracted and interacting with your device too much like Croker was, well, then you'll be fine. But somebody who watches a film or streams something on BBC iPlayer while they're driving obviously needs their head feeling. So that comes into it, but it's always been primarily focused on the broadcaster who is streaming from their car and then reading the comments and interacting with that.
I listen to talk radio and LBC and thing, and I can only get that on the phone. So I got it on. I've got a hands-free kit to put on, and I listen while I'm driving. But I'm always worried because I press the button so it goes black. The screen goes black. I'm always worried because they put a picture up, you know, of who's on. And I'm always worried somebody stops and says, you're looking at us. I said, no, I'm not. I'm listening. So how would I stand there? Would they be sympathetic?
I guess it depends how you'd approach it. They've got to be able to prove that you were distracted, essentially. So if they can't prove you were distracted, well, then there's nothing they can do about it, especially if you weren't holding the phone. Because let's face it, every phone that goes in a clip on a dashboard that people use as a sat-nav is a screen that people are staring at. Yeah. So as the cops are driving down the road behind you and it's nighttime and there's a screen on that they can see on the dashboard, are they at a distance to be able to tell that you are live streaming, reading your emails, sending a text message, or using it as a sat-nav? So it takes, some...
Incidentally, on about sat-nav, there's a new piece of kit that you can... I've got a couple of bits of kit. There's one won the British Award, and you put it in, it's called CD slot mount. It's fantastic. Goes into your CD and it takes it off the screen. But have you ever seen a pilot when he's in the air with a HUD display, HUD display? And
head-up display.
There's actually a head-up display for your sat-nav on a phone. And what it does is it goes onto the screen. When you're driving, you've got a HUD on your screen that is see-through. Have you heard of that?
Yeah. It's standard on some of the Lexuses now that I know of. And I'm sure there are other manufacturers as well, but I've certainly seen it on a Lexus. And I think the only thing that concerns me about stuff like that is that if you're transferring the information that is on your instrument cluster, fuel, temperature, speed, revs, etc., up onto the windscreen, well, then I say, well, great, because you're still looking ahead. Your eyes are the movement is less. Great. I don't think it would make a great deal of difference to me. What worries me is how much more information as time goes on that manufacturers are going to start pushing into a head-up display, because they'll say, we'll push it there because it's safer, because you're not taking your eyes off the road. And I would probably argue that actually, yes, you are, because your focus is changing, isn't it? Your focus point is changing. You can be looking down the road, but then suddenly you're reading something on the screen. So as I'm looking down out through the window of the house now, looking at my car at the bottom of the garden, and that's all in focus, but I've got to bring my view back to the laptop screen in order to read the head-up display, at which point the car is completely blurred and out of focus because the depth of field has totally changed.
This just puts up where you're going.
Yeah. So sat-nav type stuff. And I think, that sort of stuff's fine. And I guess as long as it doesn't obstruct your view, and as long as, one of the things that bothers me more than anything else about sat-nav, and I'm lucky really, is I've got quite a good nose for direction, so I can sort of generally find, if I look at a map before I leave, I can pretty much get myself there without an issue. But I think sat-navs are great when they're giving verbal and voice instructions, saying turn left here, turn right there. I think sometimes they're completely irritating because they're a little bit over the top, in half a mile, in 500 yards, in 200 meters, turn left now, But if they're giving you those instructions, I think it's fine. But there's a tendency when there's a screen for people, whether it's on a phone or whether it's on a multimedia infotainment sort of system built into the car, there's that tendency to go...
Well,
and that you know, could be an issue.
I've got one guy who works for me who lives in the country, and he's not a city dweller, and he wouldn't be able to do his job without a sat-nav. He's got to have a sat-nav to get to some awkward places and stuff like that.
Yeah. See, I mean, I spent 3 years, before I joined the police, I spent 3 years dispatching. And I worked for a courier company in Manchester, and I wasn't a motorcyclist, I was in a van. And I ran all over the UK, and sat-nav was never heard of.
No.
I had maps, I had A to Zs for the major cities. If I didn't have a map where I was going, I picked one up. And in the bag that used to sit in the back of the van, just behind my sort of bulkhead, when I had a bigger van, it was in the cab with me, was a bag. And in that bag was all my maps for where I was going. So if I needed to go to Colchester, I'd got a map, or I bought one.
It's funny, 10 years ago, I ended up in London driving a lorry with a big crash cushion with a bumper on the back and an arrow, walking the roads. And I thought, how am I going to find my way about London? A little boy from Aberdeen coming down to the big smoke. And I never used a sat-nav. And what made me laugh was the guys that lived there would used to phone me up and say, how do we get to such an area? They couldn't even read a map. I was amazed. So I thought it was quite funny. And I used to go all over London, knowing the M25. All these things.
You know, I had countless A to Zs, and then I can't even remember the name of the one. There was another one that was really popular with the dispatchers in London because it gave grid references for the squares. So, you know, when you in A to Z, it'd say it's in square A4, and then you'd have to try and find the street or avenue that you're looking for in square. There was another type where it'd say A4 and then B7, like OS coordinates. And you just go into the square and go, there it is, got it. And that's what, you know, I used to do. I used to drive with A to Zs, and you'd pull over at the side of the road, double check, reaffirm where you're going, and carry on. And if you got it wrong, you parked up and checked and corrected it.
You've made me smile a little bit because I've just looked up on the shelf and there's 19 A to Zs on the shelf that haven't been down in years, and I should think the vast majority of them are well out of date.
Yeah.
But until I stopped travelling around the country, I used to use the A to Z like that. Now, I've got sat-nav in my present vehicle. I never program it to the last leg.
Yes.
So if I'm going to Devon, I'll drive all the way down the A5 through Exeter, maybe get down to you know, the Riviera, if you like to call it, the English Riviera, and then I'll put the last few hundred yards or last few miles into the sat-nav. It'd drive me balmy otherwise anyway.
Yeah.
Can I just tell you about a bit of software that I downloaded onto my phone? So if you don't want to buy one, a sat-nav, this is called, typed it in, it's called NavMe, right? And I'll give you how it worked for me. So you're in the middle of the country, you're in the middle of nowhere, and you say to somebody, you need to pick me up. And what you do is you go into the software, it's a map, you put your finger on where you are, it shows you where you are, and you can use it without being on 3G. You press it, and it gives you three little words, and that's what it's called, as they use that. And those three little words, you text them to someone that you want to meet. And I unfortunately collapsed on my bike. I couldn't go any further. I was 30 miles out of Aberdeen, and one of my guys was on call, and I said, meet me here. And it was in the middle of the country. Yeah, just out in the country. Very hard to describe where exactly it was. But he turned up, and he came right to my feet at the side of the road. It was fantastic. And NavMe, and you can get it for every country. So have you heard of that before, folks?
Only when you told us about it last time.
Right, well, that's for the people.
But it is relevant. It is relevant today.
No, I know. I wasn't being awkward.
No, I know. Now, the situation is that we are lucky to be here today because earlier in the week, the internet went down. Didn't it, John?
a portion of the internet went down, i.e. all the poor buggers that use Amazon to run their sites and services.
But that's 31% of the internet. They've had servers in place since 2006. They're way ahead of Microsoft and everybody else. They're the market leader. And they've got 31% of the internet. So if they get a problem, if they sneeze, we catch a cold, because all the major sites went down. Are we too reliant on Amazon, is my question.
Got to be reliant on somebody. My sites didn't go down because I have them on a little server in Gloucester. But
right, interesting. Yeah,
but
I've just seen some.
I mean, I tried to join your.
I've lost any. But...
I tried to join your Smiletime, and all I got was a blank screen. But yet, you two guys were happily chatting away because I could see you on Facebook, but couldn't join you in Smiletime.
I can solve that mystery. We weren't actually on Smiletime.
Right.
We were because we're always looking at new software. We were testing the latest version of vMix, which allows you to go to a vMix site and go effectively 9-up on screen. So it was working from Leland's PC.
Right.
But we are totally reliant on the internet now. I mean, times have changed, and Amazon has 31%, and we should be able to rely on it. And if we can't, then we've got trouble. So, now the other thing that we wanted to bring up on today's show.
Where's Mr. Silk?
I think Stephen can't get in at the moment, so I've invited him, but I think he's left us.
This is a good advert for not buying a Mac.
Right. Okay. I just want to bring us to one more British topic, and that is that 8 out of 10 people looking to buy a home in the UK, a new home, first-time buyers, can't do so locally. Is the housing market in crisis, I ask? How easy is it to get onto the ladder these days? Okay, I'm going through my own questions here. Do you have any thoughts, Neil?
It's a funny thing, really, isn't it? Because from my experience, when I left school and went to college for a short amount of time, and then I realised that the course I was doing was just not for me at all. I enjoyed tinkering around with cars, but I didn't want to do it for a living. And I came out and I had no idea what I was going to do. And I went to the post office and I worked for the post office for a few years. And I looked at the money that was coming in, and I was still at home with my parents. And I thought, when I went on to full pay at the post office, and I thought, there's postmen here, and they've got these houses, and they've got double glazing, they've got a car, and they've got and I thought, how in God's name are they doing that on this money? You know, how are they doing that? How are they paying a mortgage on this sort of money? And I think there's this I had this feeling that I was never ever going to get a house. I was never going to get anywhere of my own. And oddly, now I look back, I mean, I'm nearly 20 years into a marriage, and I've been living here where we are now since '99. But you suddenly find that you've got somewhere and you've done it and you're pushing through, and the value of this house since we bought it has nearly trebled, which is ridiculous for what it is, because it's a tiny house, but it's ridiculous. But I wonder whether it's just a generational thing that we all we're looking at how on earth we're going to do that. Because I think my parents went through the same process. How on earth are we going to afford a house? And then they've got a house, and that, you know, and I think as life goes on and you progress, if you're lucky enough to maintain work and employment, well, then life becomes that much easier as you get older. You know, when I look at what people are paying for rent at the moment and what I'm paying for a mortgage, it's incomparable. But my sympathy really in all the housing stuff lies with, you know, the people now that are coming into the marketplace, where I was looking at sort of 3.5 times our joint income, myself and my wife, to be, and we looked and thought, well, we could possibly get to about that, and we might get away with it with a bit of a deposit. Whereas you look at the price of houses now and what youngsters are likely to be earning, and think you're not going to get anywhere near it. And so there's either I sort of look and think house prices are going to come down significantly, or there's going to be a whole reassessment about that we actually buy and invest in our homes, and shared ownership and all this sort of stuff is going to come into play even more, because if my eldest is 15, so she's way away from needing her own place, and hopefully she's going to go off to university, so she'll do all that sort of stuff. But if you think when you're sort of 21, 22 and you're coming out and you're landing a job, so let's add inflation onto that and say you land yourself a job and you're earning £25,000 a year, which would be quite a nice sort of place to be. You think, well, you're not going to scratch the surface of a 2-bed semi or a quasi semi somewhere that they want 250,000 for. You're just not going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's quite a worry for younger people.
I've got, I guess, some experiences, because mine are 25, 28 and 30, my children. Is it me that's echoing?
Yeah.
We can hear you, yeah. Echoing, yeah.
I could also hear Peter echoing as well.
You're better now.
Okay. Now, my youngest, the 25-year-old, she's in rented accommodation because there's no way her and her partner could ever afford a house. The eldest is in a house of his own, if you like, with a mortgage. His other half is a teacher, so she's reasonably well paid. But they couldn't get a mortgage because he was self-employed, and in the end he had to go out and get a job before he could get a mortgage. So it is really tough out there for them. And just to give you an idea of crazy house price raises, my mum and dad bought their house in 1986 for £6,690. I've handed the keys over to somebody else last week, and it went under its valuation because it really needed serious decoration work. It didn't even have central heating. But it sold for £213,000 in a pretty distressed state. I mean, it's going to take someone 3 months to make it into what you and I would like to live in. So house prices have just gone balmy. I mean, my own house, the next door neighbour but one, she's got a 3-bed, and I've extended mine so it's 5-bed. I've got a garage, she hasn't got a garage. I've got a bit more land. I've extended my kitchen, she's extended hers, but it's only a little bit. It's went for £319,000 for a 3-bed semi. However are the kids going to cope with that sort of pricing?
Exactly. I mean, I think one of the things that we tend to do, isn't it, is that we've had a discussion around sort of home and this place now. We've outgrown it, but we can't really, where we live, we can't really afford to move into a bigger property in this village here because the prices are through the roof. And we lost my dad a couple of years back, probably 3 now. Mum lives on her own in a bungalow. She's quite happy, she's quite content, but she's sort of lonely, and she's getting to the point where she wants to be around and closer to people. She's about half an hour away from us, and we've gone through discussions about whether or not, and with my brothers as well, because it affects them, because if she's going to stay with any of us, she can only really stay with us. And that would need a bigger house. You think she sells the bungalow, she invests the money into me and my wife, and then we buy a bigger property that she can be accommodated in as well, and then she will be with us and we will care for her and we will look after her. And there's always this thing about pushing elderly relatives into care when they reach the point that you can't cope, and you think, well, maybe we're reaching a point where we have to start consolidating our income as families in order to keep moving forward. And I know that's difficult when, you know, youngsters get a job and they say, I'm off to London because it's all great excitement, or I've got this job on, you know, up on the oil fields and I'm going to live in Aberdeen, or whatever it happens to be. That becomes difficult. But I think in some cases, and you know, I look at people that I went to school with that I still sort of see on Facebook occasionally, and they still live within spitting distance of where they lived when they were children, and their families and things are all around them. I mean, I've moved miles away, and my family life is now centered in this village, which is not really good for my kids, because as and when they want to move and get careers and stuff, there's limited opportunity for them here.
Can you just drop me off, Stephen? I've got someone at the front door.
But you do tend to look at it and think, well, maybe, you know, consolidating your income as a family, because one of the things we've said is that if mum needs to go into care at any point, well, then her assets will be stripped by that care need. And she spent all her life paying into her national insurance and all those sort of things that will help to provide care for her if she reaches the point where she needs it. But what she's built up will be taken from her first. And so she's got a home and she's got all those assets there that by the time she comes to leave us, that is likely to have just been stripped by care. And we think, well, the best place for that is within the family, and that there'll be some continuity to that then, in that when myself and my wife go, well, then the property will, you know, or before, if I go and then my wife is the last one, well, then she would do the same, and she would move and shift those assets into the family again. So that money, that value remains with the family and doesn't become dissolved into something that just into the ether.
The other thing you get to when your kids have left home is you become the parcel depot, okay? Because they're never at home, but they reckon that you and your wife are always at home. So this is for Tom, the eldest.
Right. Taking you up on that topic, John, of being at home. And Tish mentioned it earlier. There was a vote in the House of Lords yesterday which suggested that the government should actually, on a one-sided basis, accept that the 3 million European Union citizens who are working and living in the UK should be granted permanent status, so that when we leave the EU in 2 years' time, they know that they can stay here. And I think it's a shambles. I don't see any reason why they can't do it. Why they can't say here and now, instead of giving people are uncertain. People have been told that you can't stay in this country if you don't have private health insurance, if you don't fulfill these categories, and yet they've been living here 20 and 30 years. And to actually become a British resident, it's all about money and it's all about uncertainty. And we're upsetting 3 million people in this country. Now, I'm in a position where my partner, Angelica, is German and came over here and now has a British passport. So she's totally secure. She's British. But the people that she knows, who there are a lot in Wiltshire because of the army, and the German people who are living in Wiltshire are at the moment, they don't know what's going on. They don't know whether they're going to be able to stay. And I think that this could be resolved by the government accepting that anybody who has been in this country, lives in this country, has children in this country, is married to somebody in this country, they could say here and now, you can stay when we leave the EU. That's my rant.
I think May is frightened she'll lose a bargaining chip if she does that. I personally think it's the right thing to do. I mean, my friend Herv, and I think quite a few of you know Herv through Facebook down in Cornwall, he's worried sick because he's French and everything he does is here because he's been here so long he doesn't really remember home almost, you know. And yet he's worried sick that he's just took on a new cottage and he can find himself being thrown out.
Yeah, and it's not an isolated case. There are millions of people who are in this situation.
There's another piece of similar madness that happened this week. A lady from Singapore has been removed back to Singapore, and she's been married and in the UK for 27 years. But she went home and looked after her mum, who was not very well, and her dad, who was not very well. And if you tot up all the trips out that she's taken out to Singapore, it means she's been out of the country more than 2 years. And because of that, they've chucked her back home. Madness. Just madness. What kind of a society are we when we do sick things like that? Everybody's gone silent.
No, not.
Oh yeah, Peter's back. We won't have silence.
I'm not sure whether Neil wants to speak to the topic. Peter, do you want to say anything?
Well, this is what I'm thinking. She's trying to keep her cards close to the chest. So this is what I would do if it was me. I'll say, listen, we're going to wait to trigger Article 50. For those that you are in the United Kingdom and you came before that, no problem. You will be staying here. Now, after it's triggered, no one else will get that.
But that's what they proposed in the Lords last night, effectively. Yeah, well, that's overwritten.
And then we would see what the European Union is going to do to our citizens after that. That would be very interesting. If that's the way I would do it now, looking at it and just say, yeah, okay, we're going to do this. What are you going to do? They could play a nasty card.
This is the thing that France and Spain, or Spain especially, have said. I don't know whether the government has said it, but they've never given any indication that Brits will be sent back to the UK. They've never said anything. They haven't said a word. It's not something that crops up there. And yet our government, as you quite rightly just said, Peter, are using this as a bargaining chip in the EU negotiations. And I agree with you. I agree with John that it could all be sorted. And your idea of saying when they trigger Article 50, everybody who was here before that and has residency in the UK can stay is a good idea.
Will not have that, right? I mean, we've got a lot of people in Aberdeen. I'm very friendly, and I say to them, the one guy who set up a business is, what are you going to do if they put you out? Which I don't think they will. And he says, well, they'll just have to give me compensation for my business and my mortgage and all that if they put me back out of here, you know, because some of them won't take dual citizenship.
Oh, that's right. It costs so much.
Yeah, and they've got their pride as well. They're you know, if they're from Lithuania now, they're great people. I've met some great people, and they've got their pride in their own country, and so that's the problem, you know.
Yeah.
And but there's got to be a line drawn somewhere, you know?
So, based on this little discussion, what do people think about what John Major said this week? Is he an absolute interfering idiot, or does he talk sense?
Mr. Major has had his time. Keep out of it now. You've done what he had to do, what you had to do when he was Prime Minister. You've done your bit, served your country. Don't meddle with the young people that are now running the country. That's what I would say. If you couldn't get it right yourself, don't try and put it on to others to get it right. End off.
Well, that's a note to end on, and we always speak our mind here. No problem with that. I'd like to say, Neil, thank you for joining us this morning.
No, thank you.
And to just let me change this up, and it'll go like that. Neil and I, and some of the Blabbing for Britain team will be back in 30 minutes as we start the countdown to midday when Don't Stream and Drive on Twitter and Facebook. Well, that's when it all begins. That's when it all
lights up, hopefully. Yeah.
You want to light up the screen. Yeah. And so, from everybody on Blabbing for Britain, have a great week. If you can join us at 11:30 on the same page, please do. If you want to help, just press the thunderclap link above, and you can, even at this late stage, you've got an hour to invest a tweet or invest a Facebook post in creating Don't Stream and Drive Day's success. So, Neil, if you'd like to take us out and
the right way. Oh,
Okay.
I have to stand up, won't I? There.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh. But no, thank you very much for having me. I always enjoy Blabbing for Britain when I can jump in, and I'm looking forward to coming back in half an hour or so and talking some more about the campaign today. So thank you.
Brilliant. Wonderful. And Peter and John.
Goodbye.
Later.
Yeah. See you all later, and take care, everybody. This has been Blabbing for Britain, and we'll be back in half an hour with our special show for Don't Stream and Drive Day with Neil, and we'll see you there.
Can John and Stephen come back for 5 minutes after we're off?
All right. Yes, surely. Yeah. Okay. Right. I'll see you in 30 minutes, Neil. Okay.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye, everybody. Thank you, Tish.